All right. Hey, what's up, Blazer fans? Welcome to We Have a Take the What podcast. I am Tara Bowen Biggs, joined as always by Rose Harding. Hello, Rose.
Hello, Tara. How are you?
I am doing pretty darn good. There was a really fun Blazer game last night. Did you catch it?
I did. I saw like 2.5 quarters because I also had to do my daughter's bedtime, but yes.
Yeah. So last night the Blazers played the champion. What did they, I want to say Dallas. It's not Dallas, Denver. They played the Denver Nuggets, who of course didn't have, Jokic and Murray. Like, I don't know how long or if they are really injured, but like, why bother? And Blazers famously started five rookies, which, oh my God, they said that on the broadcast so many times, just in case we didn't know.
Well, we aren't setting other records this season, so we
I
need to
know.
at least capture the ones that we do
Yes.
set.
And I'm not saying it wasn't important, because it was
Mm,
very important. Because it was also, they started five rookies, and then when the rookies weren't playing, it was Delano Banton, Jabari Walker, and Ashton Hagens, with the remainder being rookies. Oh, and
hmm
Moses Brown.
Right.
So, it was a classic end of the season Blazer game, but those guys put up a fight. It was fun to watch.
Yeah. Also, so I'll say this. I'm pretty sure that what happened was that as soon as the Blazers announced their starting lineup, the Denver Nuggets scratched Murray and Jokic. Like because Murray played the last game, and I'll say
Mhm.
that they kind of like they don't play him every single game, but they play him whenever they think that they need him. And then as soon as I think that this like the starting lineup came out, they were like,
Yeah.
never mind, Murray's out. Because I'll say I have Jamal Murray on my fantasy team.
Okay.
And I got the message that he was not going to play basically like 5 minutes after I got the news of who would be starting for the Blazers.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I was questioning whether they would have decided to even bring them up on this trip.
But like making them all play hard until the end, like with a team that young, like that's a win. This is a championship caliber team. Like even without those guys on the floor, I mean, obviously not as much, but all of these like a lot of these guys have won championships. Like
Hmm.
these are good players. And half of the guys that we saw last night, even if they weren't rookies, they like weren't in the league a year ago. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know, like that's pretty awesome.
Well, the NBA tweeted after the game, Aaron Gordon dominates in win over the Trailblazers, which, okay, as a new Aaron Gordon fan, I really love Aaron Gordon. I didn't used to be a fan of his, but I really love watching him now. And I would say it was a true statement that Aaron Gordon was a big part of the reason that the Nuggets won that game, because he was playing super hard. He was everywhere. He was all over everybody. And also like 20 to 30 pounds heavier than everybody else. So he did dominate in that way. But I felt that them just saying, oh, Aaron Gordon dominated, didn't really tell the whole story,
Yeah, I
that
would agree.
he dominated a team of rookies who were not going to quit. And I think like 5 minutes into the game, I was like, oh, by the time this game is over, the Nuggets are going to hate our players so much, because they were so pesky. And it was, I mean, like, we've been getting it here and there this season, and that's been fun. But like for the decade before this, like,
Mm,
how often have we got to see the whole team just like swarming like a bunch of pests? It's so fun.
yeah, and like I mean, like one of the things that is feels true about the young Blazers is like they play hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, like I think that there are some teams that like don't always look like they're playing hard because they're frustrated with the season. Um and like I don't know, like these guys are still playing hard.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I appreciate how hard they work on defense, partially because we haven't seen that for like a long time here, but also that like some of these guys have great defensive skills that I think that they've gotten a lot of praise for, and they're still leaning hard into that while they try to develop their other skills.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm trying to look up the box score for this game because I
Oh,
want to know
okay.
I want to know how hard Aaron Gordon dominated because I have to be honest, I didn't really look.
He had a number of blocks and steals in addition. Like he didn't have like gaudy, it wasn't like a dominating kind of performance. It was a dominating performance. But one of the things that I enjoyed watching about it last night is I felt like they were playing more in the moment and not trying to like do everything perfectly, but do everything right, which is like a weird thing to say. And also like, how would I know? But they felt like a little bit more relaxed, including, starting with like Scoot at the top. So it was just like, okay, it's just us. This is us. It's us. And we're in this together and we're just going to do it the way that we know how. And so while there were like plenty of turnovers, there weren't as many as one would have thought. I don't know if you've got the box score up yet, but I was like, it felt like they'd had like 30 turnovers, but I think they had like 15. Did they end up with?
It looks like, well, I can right now the box score that I'm seeing only shows the starters, and I see like 10 or
Mm.
8 among the starters.
Anyway,
Um,
I felt like they were starting to put it together. Whereas instead, okay, we're gonna run this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this. It was more they were just like out there playing. And I don't know, it was fun to watch Scoot have some success. Like he was scoring in some ways that we have not seen him score at the NBA level. Like maybe we're a way that he scored in the Ignite level. And, sure, it's easier when you don't have Jokic in the middle, like clogging up everything.
right.
But, every team doesn't have Jokic and you got to start somewhere. So
Yeah.
I just really enjoyed it last night.
Aaron Gordon had 22, 12, and 5.
And how many blocks and steals did he have?
3 blocks and 0 steals.
No steals. Okay.
No steals.
But he had
He
blocks.
was -6. His plus minus was -6.
Yeah.
DeAndre Jordan 11-8, 3-1-1 is pretty good considering he's like his age and like kind of like the amount of play he gets.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know. Like the fact that DeAndre Ayton is like Jokic's backup feels like the Twilight Zone. Because they
Yeah.
couldn't be more different styles, and also like DeAndre Jordan is like, I don't know how old he is, but he's old for the NBA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's interesting that you're becoming a big Aaron Gordon fan to me though, because you're out on dunks. So
Well, let's not talk about that.
okay.
No, I was out on Aaron Gordon because one of my former podcast partners at Blazers Edge was a huge Aaron Gordon fan, and I just was always like contrarian to him. So I was just being contrarian. It was like, oh, okay. Well, if you like him, then I'm just gonna not, Okay, maybe it's not the best reasoning. But he also just like he just always looks so sad, and like and I know that he just looked like he wasn't having any fun. And then last year during the Nuggets championship run, I was just like, man, he's a solid player. And he probably, doesn't look like he's having fun all the time because maybe he wasn't having fun all the time because you know what? After he won a championship, he looked like he was having a lot of fun. He looked like he was happy. I don't know. I just have done like a turnaround on Aaron Gordon because I think that you know, he's a really good player and he's solid, and I'm just glad when somebody starts smiling and they're happy again.
Aaron Gordon was a player that at one point I was like, oh, I would love to see him on the Blazers. But I have to admit something about watching Aaron Gordon play in Denver that I think I didn't quite appreciate about him until now. I don't think that he is meant for the size of role that the Blazers would have needed him for. I think
Okay.
that he's great in the role that he has in Denver because it's the right size.
Mm-hmm.
And we would have needed him to be more.
He
He
would have
could
had
have
to be
grown.
the second best player on the team.
Yes. And and not to say that he couldn't have done that. He couldn't have grown into that. I don't know what kind of player he would have grown into, but like right now I feel like he's in the right size role for him. It's like that Paul Millsap. Remember the Paul Millsap role that they used to have? Like it sort of reminds me of like the Paul Millsap like sized role that they have. But he gets a little bit more because he's obviously more athletic than Paul Millsap.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like the kind of player that he would have had to have been in Portland would have been very different than he has to be in Denver. He's like what, the third or fourth guy?
Mhm.
Like depending on where you like rank him and Porter.
Yeah, I mean, there's
It's
Jokic
like
and Murray. They're
Jokic,
like
Murray, and then it's
gap.
like yeah, and then it's Porter and Aaron Gordon in there.
I think Aaron Gordon is over Porter because he just does more, I would
Yeah.
think.
He just doesn't always score as much as like Porter is like he plays like a Klay Thompson type of role in which
Hmm.
like he could just pour in like 30 points
Hmm.
and you'd be like, well, there's nothing we can do about this shooter when he's hot.
Hmm. It
Um,
was kind of nice to not see him doing that, not to see Porter pouring it in last night. How many did Porter end up with?
I see 12.
Ah, see, isn't that lovely? I love
It
that.
is lovely. For you know what? He's one of those players that I like. I know that some people really, really love him, but I'm like, to me, you're just always the NBA's Jafar.
Mm-mm.
Sorry.
Yeah. He was really bothered, I think, last night by those pesky guys, by Tumani, by Chris. Um, uh,
Yeah.
who else? Ryan, it's,
Yeah.
I mean, they were just everywhere. Those those three were just
And they're
all
long. They're
over.
all have
Yeah.
like their limbs for days.
Yeah. And they don't care. And like the fact that they didn't all foul out either was like, hey, we're making some progress. We're making some progress. I'm not saying we're there yet. I'm not ready to like, you know, ring the bell or whatever, but it was just really fun to watch last night.
Yeah. Um,
Well, oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, I feel like this is like feels a much more positive way to end a season where you didn't play well when you get to see that kind of play from your team. Because I feel like we've had a couple of seasons now in a row where the end is not very exciting and it feels kind of sad. And this time it's like that was a good loss.
Hmm.
Good losses where you see like the growth of your team are good,
Hmm.
even if they're at losses.
Well, and the last 2 years, like I was super bummed yesterday when they shut Aiton down, and I don't know if they're gonna if that's forever or whatever. And I still see them saying like, "Oh, Shaden and Malcolm Brogdon are right around the corner." Like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
believe it when I
sure.
see it. And I was super bummed that we weren't going to see Aiton play, and I don't know how much we're going to see him play. But the thing about it is the last 2 years, the team has really been comprised of whoever they could pick up to come in and play out the rest of the season. And this year, it's comprised of people who are actually going to be on the roster. And
Mm,
so their minutes together matter.
yeah.
Like they're going to play together. And so that makes it funner. That makes it fun to watch.
Last night, my daughter did the thing where like I'm trying to not like pressure her to be a Blazers fan. I want to like, let her lead on that. But last night when I had the game on, she was like, "This is live, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's live. It's happening right now." She's like, "Are we at home?" And I was like,
Ooh.
I was like, "Yes."
Observant.
Like, "Yes, we're at home." She's like, "I thought so." She's like, "Why aren't we at the game?"
Oh, did your heart just skip a beat or swell or whatever?
Yeah,
That's
yes. And
wonderful.
I was like, "Oh, do you want to go to another game?" She's like, "Yeah, we should go to another game." Now I gotta
Fun.
find another game to go to.
Good
Darn.
work. Yeah, they're gonna be on a long road trip, but then after that.
Yeah. Maybe it's the game or maybe it's the Dippin' Dots. I don't know.
Yeah. You could conduct an experiment where you gave her Dippin' Dots and then find out if she ever asks about going to a game again.
I don't do they have is I don't is Dippin' Dots feels like it's only like a basketball arena thing at this point or like
I have no
carnivals.
idea. Yeah,
It's
no
not like
idea.
there's like a store where there's like a Dippin' Dots store.
You don't think they have them like at the corner store?
I
I
don't
don't know. We'll
I
have
don't
to we'll
know.
have to go investigate.
Yeah.
Next week we can report back.
Okay.
Well, so since the Blazers this week, or maybe it was last week, were officially eliminated from the playoffs, we thought that we would take a look at the teams that are remaining that look like they're gonna go to the playoffs, and we're not gonna go the typical let's get into it and discuss them in detail and what we're
Let's
gonna
get
watch
into
for
the
them.
sauce.
Yes, let's get into the sauce. We're going to get into the Blazer sauce, and we're going to go through the teams who look like they're going to be going into the playoffs and which one of them have former Blazers on them. So we can just like check in with some of these former players who we loved at one time or another, who represented our team at one time or another. And, maybe that'll help us decide who we want to watch who we want to root for in the playoffs.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's get into the sauce, Tara.
Okay. But okay, before we get into the sauce, or maybe this is just a different kind of sauce, I wanted to talk a
Dippin'
little bit
Dots.
about
Get into the Dippin' Dots.
get into the different dots. I
Dip into
wanted
the dots. Dip into the dots.
to rip into the dots because it's Rip City. Rip
Okay.
into this. Okay, let's rip into the dots. And by that I mean, okay, I have some terminology because in the group chat we've been like throwing these around for a while, and I wanted to just think about whether or not we have actual definitions of these terminologies. Also on Twitter we say them all the time. But so we say Blazer Cuties, Blazer Sweeties, and Blazer Legends. And most of the time when we say those words, we mean a former Blazer, whether or not they play somewhere else or not. Like, are those actually, do we have formal definitions in those? And it's fine if they don't. It's just that I like to be clear on if we're using terminology, like, are these two terms interchangeable? Is a Blazer Sweetie, Blazer Cutie interchangeable? Is a Blazer Legend a different thing? Do you have any thoughts on this, or am I just like overthinking?
Uh, I have some thoughts on this. So I do think of as Blazer Legend as like slightly different. Blazer Cutie and Blazer Sweetie I will use interchangeably. Although I will like I have like kind of circumstances that are probably going to like incline me to use one over the other depending on what it's about. Um Blazers Legends to me are like I think Blazers Legend is a far more like um someone who did something that was like meaningful and memorable that is not necessarily cute or sweet. So
Mhm.
sometimes it's petty. Like Nurk, I think is like to me, Nurk is like a great like Blazer legend candidate because he does a lot of very legendary things. Like when he like I'm sorry, like the quote about Draymond Green earlier this season, Blazers legend. That is not a Blazer cutie or a Blazer sweetie right there. And I think Cutie and Sweetie is like much more like benign. It's kinder than a Blazers legend could be. Although kind things can make you a Blazers legend, but a Blazer Sweetie or a Blazer Cutie is not going to be petty.
I think I'm with you most of the way on that. I think I would add that because some people that we call Blazer Legend may have never actually put on a uniform, but because of their existence, they played a pivotal role in the Blazers. So my classic example, Andrew Nicholson. I
Yes.
I would argue that he's a Blazer legend. There's some people that are on our list that we're going to talk about today who didn't wear a uniform, but their role was so significant, I might go ahead and argue that they're a legend. And then Blazer
Yeah.
Cutie, Blazer Sweetie is just like a former Blazer who like we really loved and we're just excited about them when they were here, and we're happy for them to like see where their career is taking them. And I think they're pretty interchangeable too. I think those are pretty interchangeable.
Yeah. I would agree with that. And I do so I think that like the Blazer legend thing, if I had to like boil it down, I would say that a Blazer legend is someone who helps advance the Blazers agenda in
I
some
think
way or
that's
another.
I think that I'm writing that down. Because we are giving out a Blazer Legend award this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so because we have an award attached to that, I think we need to be fairly, in sync on what we mean by that. Helps
So like
advance
I'll say
Blazer.
The Andrew Nicholson thing to me is interesting because it doesn't what he like the thing that you point out when he was on that podcast and he talked about how like you know
Draymond Green.
yeah, Draymond Green's still thinking about him. um the thing that I thought about is like, so that doesn't necessarily advance the Blazer agenda. I was like, but it does because we feel really petty towards the Warriors about that thing that happened last season. So it does advance the agenda, even though what he said has nothing to do with him being a Blazer. And
Mm-hmm.
like it had nothing to do, like he never put on a Blazer uniform. He never really actually, I don't even think he ever reported to the franchise. We just stretched and like
Yeah.
waved and stretched him or
He was
whatever.
just also an absolutely bizarre thing to do, was trading for him
Yes.
and then waving and stretching somebody for 7 years. It was
Just
just
for like a pick. It was like for a pick, right?
I think that was how they moved Ellen Crab, but now I have to go back and look at that. So,
But it was
okay.
like whatever it was not worth 7 years of you thinking about
Yes.
that person.
Or was it?
Or was it? But
It's
he
given
helped
us material for 7 years.
But he did help advance our agenda in terms of like the greater fan base agenda, not necessarily like the franchise.
Well, and he also kind of was like a stand-in for the types of things that the former GM did that made everybody go, "What are you doing?" You know
Mm.
what I mean? He was kind of he could be sort of a stand-in for that sometimes, I think. At least the way I would sometimes refer to him, or the fact that he was on Blazers roster for 7 years.
He honestly could be like his own unit of time in the Blazers
Yeah.
franchise.
Well, the Andrew Nicholson era. Yeah.
Yeah, longer or shorter than the Andrew Nicholson era of
Yeah.
Blazers. Like Dame was here for longer for like 1.5 Andrew
Yeah.
Nicholsons.
Yeah. I clarify. I just said that he was on the roster. He wasn't on the roster. He was on the payroll. Sorry. Just wanted to get that clarify
Yeah,
that
yeah.
there.
Yeah, that would be wilder if he had been on the roster for
Yes.
7 years and he never reported.
Definitely. Okay, well, let's start with the East, and I'm just gonna go down the line, and I'm looking at all of the teams who are like 1 through 10, so are likely gonna be in the playoffs or in the play-in, and so some of them, and I took these last night, so I don't know if there was any shift. Okay, Boston, number one in the East currently.
Best record in the
Um,
NBA.
Best record in the NBA, Jrue Holiday. So right off the bat, we can decide whether or not could he be considered a Blazer legend, because he really helped advance the agenda of the Blazers in terms of helping them move. They were like, that's how they were allowed to move on from the Damian Lillard era. So is Jrue Holiday a Blazer legend that we can root for?
So I'll say this. The other thing that is worth mentioning in the Jrue Holiday trade is because I remember paying attention to this is when he was traded to Boston, one of the things that he said was that Joe Cronin was easy to work with and he was interested in getting him to a place that he wanted to be. And Boston was at the top of his list. So in that way, he like very directly advanced the Blazers agenda in terms of like people trying to like crap on Joe Cronin because Miami fans tended to cry about somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're okay with him being a Blazer legend, and I would feel perfectly fine cheering for his team with him as a Blazer legend on it.
Yeah. I think that he is at least a candidate to be a Blazers legend. I also think that like we don't really know what the outcome of that like in trade is going to be because Malcolm Brogdon is here, Robert Williams is still here, but he's been injured this whole season. We don't really know what's going to happen with those two guys or how they will
Mhm.
will like advance either the franchise or like turn into other things down the road.
Mhm. Okay, so I would have no problem if somebody said that they were cheering for the Blazers or they were cheering for Boston because they had Jrue Holiday on there. Okay, here's the big one. Milwaukee. They have two current Blazers. For a minute, they had, or no, they have two former Blazers. For a minute, they had three former Blazers. Of course, they have Damian Lillard, Pat Connaughton, and Robin Lopez was on the team, but I don't believe he's on the team
They
anymore.
waived him. They waived him around the trade deadline. I forget why, but they he got waived.
Mhm.
Or he
How do
got
you?
no, he get did he get I think it was maybe after Pat Beverly. It was like it had something to do right around the Pat Beverly acquisition because I remember him tweeting that he and Pat Beverly were teammates for an hour and a half and he'll never forget their like lovely time together.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so how do you feel about rooting for Milwaukee?
I mean, I think it's a very easy, like, yes, a lot of Blazers fans are going to root for Milwaukee this year. Dame is a certified Blazers legend without the expanded definition of what a
Right.
Blazers legend is going to be. It's totally fair game to root for Milwaukee with two Blazers legends. Also, I will say this is a very funny thing that is in the weeds, but I once tweeted a picture of Pat Connaughton and Zach Collins celebrating on the bench together. And they were both celebrating in this really weird way where their arms were like in the air and kind of like waving. Um, and he retweeted that picture because I put it next to those like wavy armed guys that
Oh
are like
yeah,
in front of cell phone places.
love
And so
it.
I'll say for totally like selfish, self-centered reasons, Pat Connaughton, Blazers legend. Also, he chose
Oh,
basketball. He chose basketball over baseball, and I'm just like, good for you. Like you're
Yeah.
really supposed to be a basketball player. You can be a Blazers legend I'll say per my definition of self-centeredness.
Mhm. He forwarded your agenda via tweet, via a retweet.
Well,
Sounds
also
like.
our podcasts because I really care about bench celebrations.
That's true. Yeah, I think I would consider Pat Connaughton a Blazer cutie or a Blazer sweetie.
Mm.
And I love that he is, had a solid career,
And he was a good bench celebrator
he was
when
he
he was
was
here. He was consistent and good.
hmm Yeah, and he's still a contributor. Oh, speaking of bench celebrations, something I forgot to say in our previous discussion about the last few games.
Mm-hmm.
Great bench celebrations last night. And honestly, if the rest of the season is all of our vets sitting on the bench doing actual bench celebrations because they have something to celebrate, I would be perfectly fine. Up until now, it has been so hard to find bench celebrations. It has been so difficult because they're just like all sitting there, like concentrating so hard on learning and watching and like getting better and losing. But last night, all those vets sitting up there together, jumping up. DeAndre Ayton is the first person that I've seen do a couple of times now the fake fainting spell. So
Mm.
he's like putting a little sauce on it. He's so like if the last 10 games or so are full of veterans on the bench doing actual bench celebrations, then I would be pretty happy with that.
He's dipping the dots.
Yeah. Dipping the dots into the sauce.
I
Okay.
I love that, and I'm very excited. I didn't see that, but I'm very excited to hear that he's leaning into it. And I wonder if sometimes like finding your success as a player on your own makes all the difference too. Because like there was that mean article about him, and then he came out and he played like an all-star for
Mhm.
like the games that followed. And I feel like that I don't know. I don't want to say it's like a monkey off his back or something, but it's like it. I feel like it's easier to celebrate and find lots of things to be joyful about when you feel comfortable where you are.
Mhm. Yeah, that very well could be a contributor to it. I just think they finally had something to cheer for.
Mm.
um oh yeah, I love DeAndre Ayton. Okay. Anyway,
When he's
moving on.
happy, I feel happy. He has like a really
Yes.
great happy face.
He really does. And when I at the Blazer season ticket holder event, did I tell you that he called me honey? It
No.
was so cute. Because he had on that beautiful necklace that was like tucked under his shirt, and it was
Hmm.
like just gobs and gobs and gobs of diamonds all over it. And I was like,
The chain, the like
no,
the
not
ice
the
chain. Oh,
chain, the one with the baubles on it. It has
oh yeah,
round
yeah.
beads on it that are
Hmm.
covered. And I said, could you pull out your necklace so I could see it? Because it's really beautiful and I could see it across the room. I just would love to look at it. And he was like, oh, honey, I would love to have you take a look at this. And he like pulled, I was like, oh, honey.
He does wear
um,
beautiful jewelry though. A
yes,
plus
that doesn't mean
jewelry.
everybody can call me honey, but DeAndre Ayton could.
That's right.
All right, moving down the Eastern Conference, Cleveland doesn't have any former Blazers on it. After Cleveland is Orlando, which I think is so fun. We were talking about this before we came on about how excited we are about Orlando's like really moving up and becoming a solid team. They're number 4 in the East right now, so good for them. And they have perhaps a controversial take, former Blazer Joe Ingles, another one who famously never put on I think he did put it on a uniform because I think he was in a picture, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But he certainly did not play because he was injured. So how do you feel about Orlando? Oh, Joe Ingles, by the way, is I have not been giving stats, but he is 4.3 points and 2.1 rebounds, I think, in 17
Okay.
minutes.
Uh, sure. I don't care.
He's
I
not a
I don't.
legend.
No, I mean I don't have a lot of people really love Joe Ingles because like I'm not sure why, but a lot of people love Joe Ingles. I nothing Joe Ingles. I mean, I think he's great sort of in this like NBA like kind of like goofy personality way, but like I don't have a lot of strong feelings about Joe Ingles. I know he's a really great advocate for all ability spaces, because he has a child that's on the spectrum, I believe.
Hmm.
But I remember when he was here very briefly, he was talking about having a space in Moda Center that, was
Hmm.
for accessibility reasons for kids who need I don't remember what kind of space it was exact. I think was it
It
for
was a
like
low sensory. I
sensory
think it
low
was,
sensory space for
yeah,
like decompressing from like the
yeah,
crowds and stuff. Yeah, that's what I thought.
yeah.
Um,
I My thing about Joe Ingles is I was so excited to have him on the Blazers, and I was so bummed when he left. I really did want him to play for the Blazers. I really thought that he would be a cool addition to the team as a vet, back at the time, it made a lot of sense to me. So I was bummed when he left, but I certainly don't consider him like a Blazer legend. He's just mostly a former Blazer, in my opinion.
he and Josh Hart had like a cute little back and forth thing the first season that season that
Yeah.
they were both traded here, where they
Hmm.
like had like social banter.
Yeah, I remember that. And I think what we've learned is that Josh Hart can have amazing banter with anyone at any
Anyone,
time. He is
anyone.
he is the most entertaining player in the NBA and like on multiple levels. And he's actually, the Knicks are the next team. So the number 5 team right now in the East are the Knicks. So congratulations to the Knicks with Blazer legend Josh Hart. He
Certified.
is certified. Yeah, we can put a little extra gold star next to him. 8.9 points, 8.1 rebounds. Listen to that. 8.9 points, 8.1 rebounds, and 3.7 assists in 32.6 minutes a game.
I saw tweet the other day, and his tweet just said Josh Hart, and
Josh
it made me
Hart.
think of you. And it was
I don't know
basically
what
Josh
else you
Hart.
say.
It was just like him flying in and taking a rebound that he had absolutely no right to get.
Yeah. Like when Josh Hart came here, I was like trying to figure out like nicknames or like what are we going to call him or whatever, and there was just nothing else to say but Josh Hart. That's just all you can do when Josh Hart does something, is just say Josh Hart.
Yes, he's in there. I'm so glad that he's on a team that like gives him the visibility that he so richly deserves.
Hmm.
And he gets to do it with like, so like, he can have great banter with anybody, but the banter that he has with Jalen Brunson is hilarious.
Yeah, with his best friend.
Yes, his
Yeah.
best friend that he treats like a big brother. He
Mhm.
annoys him like a big brother. They annoy each other like they both have little brother and big brother vibes when I've seen like stuff from them.
Yeah, they have the vibes of guys who spend a lot of time together. Um, yeah, I'm excited to root for the Knicks. And, I know that my allegiance should be to Milwaukee due to Damian Lillard. And I think that once it comes down to the point where my other favorite teams aren't in it anymore, I am happy to cheer for Milwaukee, but they're just not in the first place in my heart, despite having, certified legend and a Blazer cutie on him.
Well,
Uh,
the other thing that we didn't say about Milwaukee that I'm very happy to say out loud is that because they have Doc Rivers, they like fall down a notch for me because it's hard for me to
mm.
root for Doc Rivers.
So this might be an unpopular opinion, but I'm not as down on Doc Rivers as I am on the fact that they let Terry Stotts get away.
Yeah,
I
both.
have a hard time respecting that.
Yeah, both. I mean, I'll
Um,
say Doc Rivers, he is, I don't know if he's like a proper Blazers villain, but like we all remember Doc
yeah.
Rivers and CJ.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
I mean, that
so
is fun. He's a fun villain for the Blazers, I think.
totally. Like in my head, he's a perfect coach for like the Houston Rockets because I'm like, I'll collect all the villains on one team and put them together. Like yes, go coach the villains. Go get your team with Pat Beverly and Dylan Brooks and whoever else and go play
Yeah.
under Doc Rivers.
Yeah, and it's just so weird now with Doc Rivers and Pat Beverly on Milwaukee with Damian Lillard. It's just so weird to like try to wrap our heads around that. So yeah, when they're the only ones left, then I think I'll be cheering for them. But like at this point, I'm kind of cheering for the Knicks so far, probably based on just their, um, you know, former Blazers and just kind of where I'm feeling right now. Okay, so after New
I'll say
York,
I'm totally with you.
okay,
I'll say like I spent a lot of time rooting for the Knicks when I was younger because my dad watched the Knicks because
mm,
he's from New York.
hmm,
Um, Well, technically he's from Brooklyn, but they didn't have the Nets then.
Hmm.
They were in New Jersey back then. But so he, we watched a lot of Knicks growing up, and I
Hmm.
always felt like, oh, that's a franchise that's never really going to right the ship as long as Dolan owns them. But like, surprise, here they are,
Hmm.
and yeah, I'm really happy to root for them because I think when the Knicks are good, there's a nice little air in basketball in like the press.
Hmm.
We get like the NBA gets more shine when the New York Times is interested.
Yeah, for sure. As long as like the players last, because I think last night they played Dante DiVincenzo the entire 48 minutes of the game. It's like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
I can't believe they let him do that.
But Tibbs does that with
I
players.
know he
He
does.
plays Josh Hart like 47.5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he definitely has a reputation for doing that. But I saw that yesterday. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, next up at number 6 is Indiana, friend of the podcast, of course, Caitlin Cooper. I'm using my basketball she wrote mug in honor of
Ooh.
Caitlin Cooper. However, they don't have any former Blazers, so sorry. I love Sabonis. He's like sort of Blazer Cutie adjacent, but you
He's
know,
not even a Pacer anymore, so
oh God, you're right.
he's been a king for like 2 seasons.
Oh, I completely forgot about that. Oh, thank you for pointing that out. Glad
That's
that
okay.
wasn't no, I'm glad that wasn't hanging there. Jeez. What a brain. Okay. Moving on to number 7. The Miami Heat have a Blazer cutie on them. I completely forgot about the fact that they picked up Patty Mills.
Yeah, because he
He's played
got
in
like bought out in
Mhm.
Atlanta or whatever.
And he's played 8 games for them. 5 points, 1.5 rebounds, 1.8 assists in 15.9 minutes.
He's been a Heat for like 2 seconds, and I'll say that there isn't very many players who I love more than love to hate the Heat. I'll just
So
say
it
that.
doesn't matter to you at all that they have Patty Mills
You
now.
know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna split the difference. I'm gonna root for Australia in the Olympics. And I'm super thrilled they won the bronze in the Tokyo Games, and I hope you get another medal in Paris. But Patty Mills, you're on your own in Miami.
Well, at least hopefully he's warm and enjoying the sunshine.
Sure.
The next up at number 8 are the Philadelphia 76ers, who have 2 former Blazers, Nicholas Batum and Robert Covington. To me, that's 2 people I feel very differently about. I loved Nicholas Batum, and just like the more I see him and learn about him and his story and who he is as a person, I just love him even more. And from, his gangly little 19-year-old coming into the league and being barely able to speak because he was so scared and the lights were so big, to where he is now, like I'm always going to cheer for Nicholas Batum. It was a lot easier when he was on the Clippers. Robert Covington, it was during that time where I just felt like players were being like, like you must like this player because he plays like he's 7 feet tall, or, because he's a good defender. And then they got here and it was kind of like, although I did like Robert Covington because he had pet snakes and that made him at least interesting. So I
I
don't know.
felt like that era of Blazers got sold to us, and we talked ourselves into loving
Hmm.
them,
Yep.
even though they were just meh.
Yeah.
Um, but I liked Rocco. There was some games where I absolutely thought he was very fun. I remember hating him when he would play against us.
Mm.
And I thought he was better when he was playing against us than when he was playing for us. And I don't know if that was because of scheme, because of how we used him versus how other teams used him. But like I remember hating Robert Covington because he was the kind of player that could pop off against the Blazers. And you're like, why is that guy popping off against us? He's like the fourth best guy on his team. And that just didn't ever felt like I didn't feel like we had those games from him. But like I don't mind him. I like
Hmm.
mostly nothing him as an ex-Blazer. Um, and Nick I'd love, obviously. The Sixers, I just don't think it's serious. My dad loves the Sixers right now. My dad is a Joel Embiid evangelist. I have no idea why. but it just doesn't seem very serious to root for the Sixers in the playoffs because they're not going to win.
Mhm.
Like that's my feeling is that the Sixers aren't going to win. Joel Embiid, it's not even. I don't even think he's probably going to play. They haven't actually said he's not playing the rest of the season, but like his injury is serious, and I don't think you mess around with it for a team that with him is good, but not as good as the best teams in the East. So like
Mhm.
I guess I'm like, if you want to root for them, fine, but like I don't think they're winning anything.
Well, I think it's interesting that they're in the play-in, and once we go through all of them, I think that the both of the plans are like they're shaping up to be very interesting with some teams that I would have not expected. I would have expected Philadelphia to be out of the play-in. But I think it'll be interesting. And I always love Tyrese Maxey. I love Tyrese Maxey. Uh, but yeah, they're not going to be high on my list of contenders. Chicago is number 9 currently in the East. They do not have any former Blazers right now. And Atlanta, as I discovered to my surprise when the Blazers played Atlanta a couple weeks ago, they're number 10 in the East. They have Wesley Matthews on their team. We were sitting in there during the warm-ups and we were like, wait a minute, is that Wesley Matthews? And like we are all like we're checking our phones to make sure it was actually him on the roster so that by the time he was introduced, we were able to like drum up a good, like solid cheer for him. So yeah, Blazer Cutie right there, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I love Wes Matthews. I will always love Wes Matthews. Um, I felt like we've been actually looking for another version of Wes Matthews also throughout since he like left the Blazers, which
Mhm.
is wild because I remember at the time when do you remember the season where he was became a free agent? Like, wasn't it him that said that the GM didn't even call him?
Yeah, after he was injured. Yeah.
Yeah, he just didn't even call him.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, like that
Yeah.
was such a great little core. And like those guys, I feel like how do you not call those guys?
Well, that became the beginning of the being sold, sold on the team era, pretty much. I mean, that was towards the beginning of it anywhere, where they started telling us things where it was like, is that true? You're telling me that we didn't need Wesley Matthews anymore. Okay. That these other players were going to be replacing him. Okay. You know.
Yeah. It, it wasn't great. But so I'll say like I also don't think Atlanta's winning anything. Like they
Mm,
were like I remember at the trade deadline people were talking about how they like DeJounte Murray was on the trade block. Like they were gonna think about like losing, trying to proper
mhm,
lose because
mhm,
he's like their
mhm,
best player right now. And so I don't think that so if you want to root for Wes Matthews, like Blazers legend, definitely. I think you could also say certified Blazers legend. Um,
mhm.
Iron Man. Remember when he was Iron Man when he was here because he played injured all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I thought the coming out with, okay, okay, I'll admit this and I'm going to take all kinds of flack for it because I've admitted it one time before and I got all kinds of flack for it. I think Wes Matthews is kind of corny. And I think that the whole wearing the Iron Man mask, like, oh, come on, dude. But you know what? I respect him and his impact on the league and his impact as a Blazer. And I would love to have somebody like Wesley Matthews on the team right now. But I just thought he was a little corny sometimes.
I agree that I think that he's a little corny, but I don't think corny is bad. I think some of
Okay.
my favorite players are a little bit. I think Dame's a little corny.
Yeah.
I
From the
mean, nobody
distance, I'm
wants to
like,
say that. Like you got flack for saying Wes Matthews corny. I think that Dame was a little corny, but like that was fine with me. He was trying to like make his like persona. And
mhm,
that's like what I think guys are experimenting with right now in the NBA is how to like still be memorable, even if you are in a down season or whatever. Like you still have
mhm,
a persona and air about you, and sometimes it's a little corny.
mhm. Okay, I feel better. I feel like I'm not like bagging on Wesley Matthews. Um, and we will also always remember that he was a very prolific bench celebrator. You know,
Yes.
three goggles. I mean, the three arrow. I mean, like he was like 5 steps ahead of everybody when it came
He
to
was
bench
an
celebrations.
in-game celebrator because the
Hmm.
arrow thing was like when he was in the game. And he
Yeah.
kept on trying to get Dame to do it, and Dame did it like once, and then it never happened again.
Yeah, no, he was a certified Blizzard legend for many reasons, including his celebrations.
Yeah,
So
agree.
those are the top 10 teams in the
Oh,
East
oh,
right
oh.
now. Oh, yes.
I have another point to say about why I'm chill with people voting for or writing with Wesley Matthews, because as it stands right now, in the 10 spot, they are playing the Heat
Oh
in the
yeah.
play-in. In which case, Wes Matthews all the way.
Yeah.
Corny, not whatever. Like, sorry, Patty.
It would be fun to do a bracket of just the Blazer player matchups, just the form, because I would have a really hard time choosing between Wesley Matthews and Patty Mills because I loved Patty Mills. But knowing the teams that they're on, it would be Wesley Matthews all day.
Well, we can make one. We can make a bracket
Yeah.
that our listeners can fill out.
We'll have to see if there's if it's worth it. But so anyway, that's the situation in the East right now. Brooklyn is the next up at 11, and they're pretty far behind. And of
Yeah,
course, Trendon Watford is there. We love to cheer for Trendon Watford. I just don't think that's very likely. Behind them are Toronto. Wouldn't we love to cheer for
Gary
Gary
Trent.
Trent? But again,
Keon is
it's a pretty
also on the
long ways.
Nets.
Oh yeah.
Keon's on the Nets, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, but anyway, so that's it. That's the East.
Let's go to the West.
Do you want to take us through the West or do you want me to keep going?
Well, I will take us to the West.
Okay.
I will take us to the West. So in the West, number one, best record in the West is OKC. There are no Blazers on OKC. Not even anyone Blazers adjacent that I can think of that I see on this list. So
I tried so hard. The farthest stretch, and it's a stretch, and we're gonna get there anyway, is that the fact that Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is cousins with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who I think I have a weak but still logical connection as a Blazer legend or as a Blazer sweetie.
a
So
little bit
yeah,
of a stretch though.
yeah, a little bit of a stretch.
A little bit of a stretch. So number one, OKC, none. Number two in the West, Denver. No ex-Blazers that I can think of or other kind of Blazers adjacent folks. Number three, Minnesota. Speaking of Alexander Walker. So, and oh yeah. Okay. So technically he's sort of it. And he was a Blazer for like, I don't know, a day.
Yeah, roughly. I remember when he was part of the huge CJ trade.
Right.
And then he was moved the next day to the Jazz for Joe Ingles. And then later that day, he was traded to Minnesota, where he is now. So he did pass through the Trailblazers organization in a way.
On paper.
If we're looking for a connection. And sometimes when Minnesota plays, I think, I wonder if it would have been nice for the Blazers to have held on to him. I don't know.
Yeah. But like good for him. He's on a team that's contending. And I don't know anyone who would be rooting for Minnesota on that grounds for Blazer legend, but to each
But
their own, I guess.
exactly, if that
Also,
intrigues anybody, then go for it.
a division rival though, I'm like, I just can't. I'm not trying to root for either Minnesota or Denver, really.
Mm-hmm.
Except for when it comes down to like, I remember I was rooting for Denver when it was like, well, it was them or I forget who they were playing, but it was like a new blood winner was
Mm-hmm.
like I like new
Mm-hmm.
franchises to win. So I guess in that regard. Okay, number 4 in the West, Clippers. Okay, so they traded both Rocco and Nick Batum this season, like mid-season, but still on the Clippers is Norman Powell, Mason Plumlee, and they both play some, I will say. Norman Powell has been injured off and on this season. And he's been like sort of the backup to both Kawhi and Paul George, I guess. But technically they're both on the team. I don't know how you feel about these guys, but these just feel like the ghosts of Blazers past were guys that I feel like were sold to me to love.
Okay, I agree with Norman Powell. I remember trying so hard. So when Norman Powell and Gary Trent Jr. were traded for each other, it was like this wonderful moment on Twitter where all of the Toronto fans and the Blazer fans came together and were like, take care of our favorite player. We love him so much. And then we each got the player and watched him, and we were like, oh, I really wish we had Gary Trent Jr. It was really more fun rooting for Gary Trent Jr. I'm sure Norm Powell is a lovely player, a lovely person, and really fun to root for. But I just he was one of those, he plays like he's 7 feet tall. And that's a trigger for me. So I just was never really able to like super get on board Norman Powell the way I just loved Gary Trent Jr. But
I
Mason
tried to like
Plumlee, okay, go ahead.
I tried to like Norman Powell. I'll say this is something that I didn't feel comfortable saying when he was on our team, but I feel fine saying as soon as he was traded from our team. Speaking of corny, his grind motto was like the worst one of all of them. And I couldn't believe I had to try to like accept it.
Understand the grind.
What does that even mean?
Let's get into the
Understand
grind.
Let's understand the grind. Are you a coffee enthusiast? Like, are you trying to tell me why the grind is important for certain types of coffee? Sure. But I'm not here to try to wear that on my shirt or something. Like, no.
He did have cute dogs. Or he does have cute dogs.
Yeah, that's right. He
So
did have cute dogs.
a dog lover is
like,
gonna bump him up for sure.
yeah, and he did do a shirt, like he did a shirt with Powell's books, which was just basically ready made for him to do, and he would have been silly not to do it, but he did do it, and I'm like, well, good for you.
Yeah. I just don't think he was very happy here. And so I hope that he is thriving in LA with the Clippers. Okay, but Mason Plumlee, he's a certified, or he's a Blazer sweetie to me for sure. I love Mason Plumlee because back when I was, before I knew and saw the light and I loved dunks, Mason Plumlee's backwards dunks were my favorite thing.
He did. He never dunked the other ways. He just dunked backwards, which was weird. But yeah, he was somebody that I talked myself into liking, and I did like quite a bit when he was here, even though I knew he had a lot of flaws. As a starting center.
Yeah. Did he start for us? Yeah,
he
was a star before we got
Nurkic.
Yeah, I mean that was definitely a good move on the Blazers' part. But I mean, sometimes I think that like of all of the positions, center is the one that least needs to be super good. Like it certainly helps to have a super good, and like that's how you become like a championship contender or whatever. But that's just a position that I never got like too worried about. And I liked Mason Plumlee's backwards dunks. Just I looked it up. He has 33 dunks this season, which is more than all the other Blazers except for DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton is the only Blazer that has like 65, but everybody else has less than 33 dunks on the.
And Mason Plumlee plays very little, and he backs up Zubac.
Yeah. Man, I was at the Clippers game and we like splurged the first Clippers game, and we splurged for ticket upgrades, and we're down in the 100 level below the Blazer, or below the basket. Zubac was really fun to watch. He was everywhere, and I was just like, God, I miss screens. I miss solid screens so badly, because he was just creating space for everybody everywhere. I was feeling a little jealous.
Yeah, I get it. I agree. I think that Mason Plumlee's a Blazer sweetie. I think he liked it here. Like this was like when he came here, he like got a much bigger role than I think he had gotten in previous stops in his career, and it was a really good opportunity for him to like start with a really great point guard. And I don't know, like he tried his best to fit in and do what was asked of him, and expand his skill set while he was here. Like no qualms with Mason Plumlee, but I also know the ways in which I sold myself to like him a little bit more because that was the center that I had. And like when we traded him, I was really sad because I had talked myself into it for so long. I'm like, oh no, I love Mason Plumlee, but then I was like, but this is an all around good move.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking up. Did he come to the Blazers on draft night for Rondae Hollis? Was that the Rondae Hollis Jefferson? I just have to look this up.
Sounds right.
I think that was because that was like the first time. Yes, he was drafted by the Brooklyn Nets and then traded immediately for Pat Connaughton, um, Steve Blake, and Rondae Hollis Jefferson. And I was like so excited when the Blazers drafted Rondae Hollis Jefferson, and I was like, yes. And then like moments later, it was like, no, sorry. And I was that was my first like, oh, hurts my heart. Don't get attached. Don't get attached. Don't get
Al-
attached.
Also, wasn't that right when we had extended Steve Blake like 2 weeks prior? I think that we had like re-signed Steve Blake like 2 weeks prior, and then we immediately traded him. And like part of me was like, I was like, oh, this feels really rude because Steve Blake signed here on purpose because he like a lot of his life is in Portland. He's been here quite like,
Mhm.
several stops. And like he wanted to play near like where his family had roots. And so he
Mhm.
probably signed at a discount. And then he just became a trade asset like weeks later.
And sent all the way to the other side of the country.
Yeah.
Oh, Steve Blake. All right, so yeah, with the Clippers, I enjoy rooting for Mason Plumlee, but I'm not sure how hard I'm gonna root for the Clippers, given other teams in the West with Blazer Cuties.
That's fair. Oh, okay. So that's their number four. Number five, currently facing off with the Clippers in the first round, as we see the records today, is the New Orleans Pelicans. So CJ is on that team, Larry Nance Jr. is on that team, and I guess Cody Zeller's on that team, or so this list tells me.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, I'm always cheering for CJ. New Orleans is a really interesting team. Larry Nance was one of those people that I really had to convince myself for, but I did like him, and he was a dunker. So back in the days when I liked dunks, he produced a lot of dunks. Um, but I've kind of forgotten I kind of forget about him all the time. And then yeah, Cody Zeller was one of the ones where I was just like, okay, gonna talk myself into him. That was a tough one. But I'm
I
always
have
gonna root for CJ.
I have a distinct memory of seeing Cody Zeller play for the Blazers, like or very in like one of the first two games he was here. And I remember watching him, and I think it was I want to say it was like a fast break. It was a transition. Cody Zeller on a transition dunk. And it was the slowest, most boring dunk I've ever seen in my entire life. And I said to myself, oh my God, is this all we're going to have? Is this what I have to look forward to? No shade to Cody Zeller, but like, I just remember thinking how slow he was and how this is going to be the most boring transition offense if this is going to be what we're see on the regular. And obviously that's not what happened. But like I just have that. That's the only memory I have of Cody Zeller as a Blazer, if I'm being totally honest.
Well, he was injured not long after that, I think, probably, and that was about it. I would say CJ is a Blazer legend. I'd give Larry Nance a Blazer cutie because I think he enjoyed he seemed like he enjoyed being here while he was here, and that always goes a long way to
Mm-hmm.
me.
Yeah, and didn't he and was it he and Josh Hart traded houses
I think so.
when they were traded in
Yeah.
that CJ in that trade, right? The CJ
Hmm.
trade. They traded houses, I think, because
Yeah.
Larry, and like Josh was raiding Larry's wine cellar here or whatever.
I
But
wonder who's living in that house now.
I just remember Larry Nance being really excited to like connect with the Timbers
Hmm.
because he had like young kids that he was like, oh, because he loved
He's
soccer.
a big soccer fan. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was sad that his time here wasn't better or longer, but
And I think that he could have been a good fit for the direction that the Blazers are potentially heading. With his versatility, he was a good rebounder, and I think, if I
mhm,
recall, but he was very versatile and like not quite like a typical like, is he a three? Is he a four? Like, where is he? And I think that
mhm.
he may have been a good fit with where the Blazers are headed, but they, you know, just couldn't keep him to make everything work.
Side note about CJ. I'll always root for CJ, and I love CJ. But have you seen his commercial during March Madness?
No, I haven't. What's it
He's in a
for?
commercial. Well, it's not immediately clear what it's about. It's like with Coach K and CJ, and they're
Hmm.
talking about like what it means to be a part of the team and put a jersey and wear, put a jersey on and be for something bigger. And then it was like, twist, it's a recruitment ad for the army.
Oh, that's interesting. Hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that because I saw
Hmm.
this commercial. I'm like, oh, this is an interesting commercial. Because then there was because Lehigh famously took down Duke, right?
Hmm.
When CJ was at
Against
Lehigh.
Mason Plumley.
Right. So I was like, oh, this is a funny thing. This is like a maybe they're using this thing because they used shots of like CJ playing in March Madness with the Lehigh jersey and
Oh,
Coach K was there. And then I was like, and this is about the army?
oh, interesting. That's
Okay.
interesting leap. Huh.
So anyway, it was not the commercial that I thought it was. I didn't know what I thought it was, but I certainly didn't think it was that, and it was weird. Okay. That was number 5. Number 6, Dallas. We have Derek Jones Jr.,
Blazer
who,
Cutie.
yes, who our colleague Cassidy used to love. Seth Curry and Greg Brown the third, I believe, is a two-way guy for the between the
Hmm.
Mavs and the Texas Legends. So yeah, we got 3 Blazers who have all put on uniforms for us.
Yeah, honestly, all those guys I think are Blazer Cuties in my book. Derek Jones Jr., Seth Curry. I loved Seth Curry. Seth Curry was so much fun.
I like
It
Seth Curry a lot.
it was really fun. And Greg Brown, obviously. We love Greg Brown. It's too bad that they're all on Dallas, which is otherwise such an unlikable team.
I know.
But if there was a bracket, these 3 would defeat a lot of contenders if it was just on the former Blazers. I really like all those guys. So if Dallas goes far and I have to root for them for some reason, this would help me out a lot, knowing that Derek Jones Jr., Seth Curry, and Greg Brown are all on that team.
Yeah, I agree. I have always believed so when Seth Curry was here, he was exactly what I thought we wanted out of that position that role that he played for us. Um, and I always felt like he got dinged a little bit because he wasn't his brother.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like hard for people to appreciate what he was on his own in some ways. And on his own, he's great. He
Mm-hmm.
did exactly what we needed him to do, what we wanted him to do, and he was very good at it and he was a professional. So like, yeah, I was
Mm-hmm.
super down with Seth Curry.
You know what? At one point, his somebody was saying something about him not want during I think it was during the whole Golden Warrior kerfuffle, and somebody said something about Seth Curry wanting to leave Portland, and his wife got on immediately and was like, Seth loved it in Portland. So I've always appreciate that. So we enjoyed our time in Portland. Seth enjoyed it.
Nice. Yeah. Although he does sort of advance the like Curry Rivers industrial complex of the NBA.
Feel like it could be worse.
Could be
I
worse.
mean, like the way that those Currys and Rivers have defeated the Blazers, like if we took that out of the equation, they're pretty important and pretty stunning and impressive, the amount of impact that they've had on the league.
Yeah.
Why am I out here writing for them? Oh well.
Okay, let's move on to number 7.
Yeah.
Number 7, Phoenix. Phoenix has Yusuf Nurkic, Eubanks, and Nasir Little. Very recent Blazers. Basically, they were all Blazers last season, and they basically have both of our centers from last season. I'll just say this right now, like I know that Phoenix doesn't look as good as they should on paper, but like I'm rooting for Phoenix because I'm rooting for Nurk, and he's been playing exceptional basketball this year.
Mm-hmm.
Blazers legend Nurkic, Blazer cuties, Eubanks and Nas to me.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's how they break down for me. And I also am rooting for Phoenix. I don't know why they're in 7th place. I don't know how a team that has Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal is not higher ranked than that. I know they've had injuries, but like there's 3 really good players on that team. But
I
you
can
know
tell
what?
you why.
Whatever.
I can tell you
Why?
why.
Why?
Well, Beal's been injured like a lot of this season, so they haven't figured out how to play two shooting guards together that are all-star level shooting guards because they haven't really had the chance to do it. And Booker is converting to like a point guard, which I don't know. I mean, I guess he's sort of always been kind of like a 1-2 combo, but like
Hmm.
now he's like the sole point guard.
Yeah.
Whereas prior they had like, remember they had Chris Paul, Devin
Yeah.
Booker. So
Yeah.
like that those two guys fit together far better than Beal and Booker, in my opinion. And I still think
Hmm.
right now what they're doing when they have had the opportunity for them to play together, which has been very rare. I'm talking about Booker and Beal,
Hmm.
like it looks clunky for them to
Hmm.
figure out how to best play like that like team ball, but they got like three guys who could beat anybody on the floor one on one, but when it comes time for them to like turn that into like a thing as a team, it hasn't quite happened yet, which is why Grayson Allen has been playing such good basketball in Phoenix. As much as I hate to say it, like he profits from the fact that Beal has been hurt a lot, and also he knows how to like be the right sized piece to fit between those, like the like between like Booker or Beal and Kevin Durant.
So do you think that they have enough of a foundation that they could make a run in the playoffs? Like right now they're the number 7 seed, so they'd have to play in the play-in, but getting out of the play-in, do you see them, having had enough time to get it together so that they could go farther, or do you think that they're going to need another year?
I don't know. So all the other thing I will say about that team is that Nurk has been exceptionally good on that team in his role, in my opinion, but he's also been injured a little bit. If
Hmm.
Nurk is healthy, I think that they can probably put something together. But I
Hmm.
think that they really need like more Beal Booker opportunity for them to
Hmm.
like iron out some of those like problems. Because at this point, when I like look at them play together, I'm like, they should maybe stagger your guys' minutes. This doesn't quite feel right. And also the absence of like a point guard after Devin Booker is
Hmm.
weird.
Hmm.
Like I don't like as much as I don't like Chris Paul makes a lot more sense next to Devin Booker to me than
Hmm.
Bradley Beal does.
Yeah.
But I also, so caveat, I don't know a ton about basketball or like all the different types of ways that you can put these guys together to play different styles. But when I see them together, I see guys that don't super duper know how to like play together. And
Mhm.
then I think that they have a supporting cast that's kind of weird. Like I don't know who's gonna shoot if it's not Book or Beal or Grayson Allen. I don't know who's going to shoot the ball. It seems like a lot of guys are interested in it, kind of, but they also pass and sometimes into a turnover.
Maybe what about Kevin Durant? Is it, are they passing it to Kevin Durant? Or is he been
Yeah,
injured a lot?
yeah, no, he hasn't been injured a lot. He's taken a couple games off here and there, but like he hasn't
Hmm.
been injured a whole lot. One of the things that I think is interesting about Nurk, though, when I watch Nurk play, when Nurk gets a rebound, he's like, "Where's Kevin Durant?" He always like he gets a rebound, he gets it to Kevin Durant. He gets a
Hmm.
rebound, he gets it to Book. Like he doesn't like try to like I
He's
don't
not
know.
going to be doing the fast break, the Cody Zeller style fast break all the way down for a dunk.
No, and he just knows like this is how this like I get the rebound, I get the extra possession, I get it to somebody who's going to know what to do with it.
Yeah.
But one of the most interesting things to me about watching the Suns this season is that I've really appreciated the way Kevin Durant always points to the guy holding the ball, or he points for the guy holding the ball because guys often look to him, and
Oh.
he points to who's open. He always is
Hmm.
there to tell his team who's the open guy. He knows who's open at any given moment or who's about to be open. He just points them to the guy that they should be passing the ball to. It's like not me, pass over there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, because he knows that if he doesn't, then he's gonna get it to me. Now, like if I shouldn't be having the ball right now. So yeah, Phoenix is gonna be easy to root for.
Yeah,
I like you said, yeah. Phoenix, I'm sure root for Phoenix for as long as they're in there.
Nurkic is great. I love
I'm
seeing
so
Nurkic
happy for
play
him.
well. And it's like there are problems on Phoenix, but it's not him. And it's
Hmm.
not Jrue Eubanks either. Jrue Eubanks backing up Nurk does exactly what you'd expect him to do. And he plays really well in that role.
I've seen some Phoenix fans turning on Drew Eubanks, but I think that's probably just a matter of just fan bases, showing frustration in general that their team isn't doing what they uh, expected them to be doing all year, and so they're just looking for somewhere to hang that.
Drew's been great. He does that brings that high energy thing that he does. He's
Mhm.
like kind of small for a center, but he also like he tries really hard. He gets more blocks than he should. Like, you know, he can score the ball when he gets it in the right spots and the right times. And you know, what more could you ask for a backup center?
Hmm.
So yeah. And Nas is there. Nas doesn't see consistent minutes. But you know, I always liked Nas when he was here.
Hmm.
So I
We're
easy team
always
for me
gonna,
to root for.
yeah.
And they're going to be, well, anyway, we'll get to that in a second about who they're going to be matching up with. But I'm going to be rooting for Phoenix, at least if they're in the play-in, like they are slated to be right now. Okay, number 8, Sacramento. The Kings are number 8. I'm shocked that they've fallen this far, by the way, because they
Hmm.
started out so strong. Um, but there are no Blazers on there, although this is a good time to mention again that Sabonis is on this team, so he's sort of Blazers adjacent.
Thank you. I forgot for a minute that I thought that Sabonis was still in Indiana.
Was it him and who was it that came with him?
Okay.
Because Halliburton went to
Halliburton left.
yes,
My
and
Not Turner, because Turner was when it wasn't Miles Turner. Um,
who was there? Who was the guy that came with Sabonis to Sacramento?
did somebody come or did two people go from Sacramento?
I think it was 2 people came with
Mhm.
the trade, but because I remember him telling a story about how they were on a plane together, and he was like, "Oh my God, they're gonna boo us." Because they thought that because they thought that it was going to be an unpopular trade because the fans loved Halliburton.
All I can think of are people who left Sacramento. But okay, here we go. Sacramento Kings roster: Sabonis, Harrison Barnes, Malik Monk, Keegan Murray, Kevin Herter, De'Aaron Fox, Davion Mitchell, Chris Duarte, Trey Lyles, Keon Ellis, JaVale, Alex Lynn, Sasha, Kobe. I'm not sure. It wasn't Herter, was it?
No, because I think he was on Atlanta before he was on the Kings.
Hmm.
Well,
Well,
the obvious
there's no
thing,
Blazers. That's the important thing.
yeah. Oh, I do remember Buddy Hield went to Indiana with Halliburton, right?
Hmm.
Didn't
Yes.
Hield go? So Sacramento, okay, so Indiana got Halliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson, and Sacramento got Sabonis, Justin Holiday, and Jeremy Lamb. I guess no. I don't know. Let's see, yeah. I guess Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield were like, and Tristan Thompson's like the throw in, right? Because Tristan
Hmm.
Thompson, I don't even think played in Indiana because he's went to the Cavs shortly after.
Hmm.
Justin Holiday, Jeremy Lamb. Is Jeremy Lamb in the NBA anymore?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
He's not a Blazer, so he hasn't gone through my mind. He hasn't made much of an imprint on my brain.
So anyway, 8th seed is the Kings. No actual Blazers legends. Although I do really like watching the Kings. The Kings have been super fun to watch this season. So as like a fan of like fun basketball,
Hmm.
the thing that makes them Blazers adjacent to me, weirdly, is that they play a very similar style to me as the Blazers did under Stotts, where it's like the best defense is really potent offense.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, so anyway, Sacramento, 8 seed. 9 seed. Hmm. Currently in ninth in the West is the Los Angeles Lakers.
Hilarious.
Yes. They have former Blazers Cam Reddish, Skylar Mays, and Harry Giles.
All Blazer Cuties,
Yeah.
I would say. I'm
Yeah.
so happy for Cam Reddish. I'm so happy that Cam Reddish has found a role on a team.
Yeah. And like LeBron says nice things about him. I feel like those guys, we talked about this before with him and Kevin Knox. These are guys that like kind of kicked around the NBA and came into the NBA during the pandemic in a time where it was kind of hard, I think, to
Hmm.
find your footing. Um, and so I'm glad that he's been given a shot there with a role. Skylar Mays, I'll always be happy to see Skylar Mays still kicking around and doing things.
Hmm.
Harry Giles, well, I guess he's special to us because I sent you a cameo from Harry Giles once.
Yes, I know.
Because you were on the Harry Giles hype train for a second there.
Yeah.
I don't remember why though.
Well, I mean, it's just when you get new guys, you get to learn about him, and he was just a guy that, from his previous time in Sacramento, they loved him in Sacramento, and he
Mm,
was a really high and intriguing prospect. But he had all those injuries, and that set him back. And so it was just one of those like maybe Harry Giles will be it. Again, it's part of that season where, or those seasons where we were being told that this is what we need. This is what we need. He's going to turn out, never didn't succeed anywhere else, but here he's going to make it work.
yeah, that's right. So as it stands right now, Sacramento and the Lakers would be meeting in the play-in, right?
Um,
8 and
no,
9.
7 and 8 would play, and the winner of 7 would go on, or the winner of that goes on, and the loser then plays the winner of 9 and 10. So Phoenix and Sacramento would play first. The
Oh,
winner moves on. The loser plays the winner of the 9 and 10 game, which is the Lakers, as we just talked about. And number 10, I love the fact that the team that's in number 10 is in number 10 right now. I love it so
let's just
much.
move on to number 10 then. I'll say this. I don't think there's any amount of Blazer Cuties or legends on the Lakers that could make me feel like great about us rooting for them, but whatever, to each their own. Number 10 is the Golden State Warriors. The Golden Warriors are in the 10 spot right now in the West.
Clinging for dear life to the number 10 seed.
They have somebody that we once paid money to on their roster. That person's name is Gary Payton 2, the
Not a
second.
Blazer cutie.
Not a Blazer cutie, not a Blazer legend, not a Blazer sweetie. I don't even know if I want to call him a Blazer, although he did technically suit up for us and play with us, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not great.
No.
But we did pay him at a time where he needed to sign somewhere and get paid.
So
And
that his team could come back and get him.
yep, that's right.
Wasn't that
So,
nice of us?
yep. So he is the only one on that team, and I would think that we agree.
We're not going to be under any
Pass.
circumstances rooting for them.
Pass.
Pass.
Although if you really
Hard pass.
if it's really 9 and 10 have to play each other, I don't know. Like I guess Lakers
Yeah.
versus Warriors.
I'm sorry if this upsets people, but I will take the Lakers every day against the Warriors. I will take them every time against the Golden Warriors. At least that's where I am now. Maybe things will change in 20 years. I don't know.
Well, I'm rooting for the 7 and the 8 currently right now. I'm rooting for the Phoenix Suns and the Sacramento Kings over 9
Mhm.
and 10 any day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Yes, yes. Well, and should we mention the fact that I mean, I already did mention that the Golden Warriors are barely clinging to the number 10, because right behind them is Houston. And you know, if Golden State doesn't even make it to the play-in, there's going to be a lot of articles and a lot of talking heads, and I can't wait to see what they have to say.
Yeah, and I'll say Houston right now, like it's a tall order, so like I think they're a game behind the Warriors. Um, but or 1.5 games behind the Warriors, I don't remember. But Şengün is out for the season, so
Mm,
they've lost their center. Um, they are like Tari Eason. There's a bunch of like important players in their lineup that they have been relying on throughout the season to get them to this point, are not playing anymore. So it would be tough, and it's hard for me to imagine that they would go anywhere in the playoffs. But I would think because of the age of that team, that the franchise would think of that as found money to get them playoff experience.
mhm,
Um, just just to play in, get that experience. As like I think they have like 3 guys on that on like their starting lineup that have been in the league like 3 or fewer years or something.
mhm,
Um, and Fred VanVleet, of course, is like the elder statesman of the Rockets, and he's always great. So, um, you know, I would be rooting to see the Houston Rockets get some play-in experience if the stars align. And we should say that there is one technically former Blazer on the Houston Rockets, which is Jonathan Williams, which I did not know about until today. So thank you for teaching me that Jonathan Williams is on the Houston Rockets.
Well, he was one of those guys that appeared at the end of the season, I think last year, where they just had to fill out the roster with somebody. So yeah, technically I'll call him a Blazer cutie. He came in and did what he needed to do.
Uh, is he a two-way guy?
No, I think he's full on the team, but I could be wrong about that.
Okay. I mean, I'll say I don't think I've seen him play, but that doesn't mean he's not on this team. And also, I guess it's worth mentioning, you know, the Houston's head coach is Ime Udoka, who has a
Oh,
Blazers adjacent person.
you're correct, Jonathan. Nathan, I think is what they call him. He is a two-way. You're absolutely right about that.
Okay. So anyway, yeah, their head coach, Portland, at least Portland. He's from Portland, so there's that too. So, and that's the West. After that, I think it's safe to say that, in after that, there's like a pretty big gap between 11 and 12 in the West. Likewise, in the East, there's a big gap between 10 and 11. So it doesn't seem very likely that they're going to be in the play-in, but you never know. There's still a few games left this season.
Yeah. That's just we just wanted to do a little roundup of where some of the Blazer cuties and Blazer legends are right now, so that we can prepare for the postseason.
Yes. And I want you to know that I've been thinking about this long and hard. So if it turns out that Denver ends up going back to the finals again, I think I can root for them, even though they've technically already won, because I think that there's something very charming about Jokic not caring about winning.
And Aaron Gordon being happy and smiling
And
being
Aaron
happy.
Gordon being happy and smiling.
Okay, but what if they're going against Milwaukee?
Oh, well, I guess I root for Milwaukee.
I think nobody has to do anything, but I think I would feel weird if I didn't. I don't know. That'll be really interesting to find out.
Here's the thing. I think a lot of Blazer fans feel like if Dame goes and wins his ring now, that he will definitely come back. And I think that's a little bit like that a little bit weighs on people's minds that if he goes and wins a ring, then he doesn't have to go, moving around the league looking for an opportunity to win again. And then he'll just come home to Portland. But I don't necessarily think that I don't think those two things are necessarily related like some people do.
And I do want him to win a ring. I
I do.
really
Yeah,
do.
I do
I
too.
super do, because selfishly, then we don't have to listen to everybody talking about whether or not he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, blah, 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 blah. Because I think he does. Does he deserve to be a top 75 player? Like, just getting that ring will just like make some of those conversations a little earlier. And also because he's worked really hard, and he was amazing for the Blazers when he was here. He did everything that was asked of him. He never
Yes.
did any, like, he was such a great player. I just am not sure if like I'm ready yet this year. But you know what? I bet you I'll just get caught up in it, and I will have no problem cheering for him in Milwaukee.
Yeah. I mean, if it comes down to Milwaukee, like if Milwaukee's in the finals, I want Dame to win a ring if they get that far into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Do I think that Milwaukee is likely to get to the finals? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
They have to go through some hard teams. Like the
Yeah.
Celtics are good. Honestly, the Celtics should be our fans as the Blazers because like Jrue Holiday has been very, very good to them, and they are very, very good this year. Like the East just honestly, the East feels harder than the West.
The top of it does, I think.
Yeah.
I think the top of it is. And maybe there's a podcast in Boston going on right now where they're, talking about certified Boston cuties who are currently on the Trailblazers. And they're like, we hope that Malcolm Brogdon and Robert Williams' team does really well.
Yeah. I would like to listen to that podcast. If any of you out there find it, please send it to me.
Yeah, well, let's wrap it up. This has been a long podcast.
Yes.
But I didn't talk about this before, but next Sunday is a holiday. So I was thinking maybe we might want to take next week off anyway. And if this is an extra long podcast, then people can have 2 weeks to listen to it.
It's a holiday for people with children, I'll say. And people who are religious and people with children, and I have a 7-year-old, so it's a holiday in this house.
You got Easter baskets to put together.
Maybe she'll get some Blazer tickets in her Easter basket.
I'm sure you'll do a much better job of being the Easter bunny than I did. I mean, coordinating with the Easter Bunny, because I was not very good at coordinating with the Easter Bunny on Easter for my kids.
It's okay. Sometimes my parents were really bad at it. Also, I point out my dad is Jewish. And like I would regularly wake up on Easter morning and my dad would be like, the Easter bunny forgot to do his job. Just stay in your room for a little bit and then come out.
Okay, your dad and I have a lot in common. All
The
right,
Easter bunny fell asleep.
we gotta go quick through our takes.
Yes.
So do you want to go first or should I go first?
Why don't you go first?
Okay, I'll go first. My take.
Yes.
Although it feels weird without having you said Tara.
Oh, I'm
What's your
sorry.
take?
Here it is. Sorry. Tara, it is Sunday, March 24th. What's your take?
Okay, I am tired of listening to NBA players talking about wine. I'm over that. I was just listening to JJ Redick and LeBron James's new podcast, which was great. I really enjoyed it, except for the extraneous wine conversations. I feel like just like I don't really drink. I don't really drink. I certainly don't really drink wine. I think wine is a waste of grape juice. I think grape juice is delicious and people should drink grape juice. Maybe if people were talking about grape juice, I'd feel differently about this, but they're talking about wine. And I just feel like when I listen to NBA players talking about wine, I just feel like those obnoxious NBA fans who just like come with statistics to sound smart. And I feel like, okay, we get it. You guys are really good and have a lot going on in your brain and you understand wine. But like just I'm tired of having it be in every conversations, and like this podcast with JJ Redick and like LeBron James are like talking about it and they're drinking it and you can hear them gulping. I don't need to hear them gulping or swishing or whatever. I'm just done with the whole hearing. I think they should all thrive if they have vineyards, and I think it should just like I'm super happy for them if they've found their passion. I just am tired of hearing about it.
You don't want the ASMR of wine drinking where people are like slurping and swirling and you're listening to their mouth sounds. I'm
No,
with you.
they had a lot of other really interesting things to say. And I'm sure there's things that I talk about that people don't want to hear about. I mean, God forbid there might be somebody out there who doesn't want to hear another word about Andrew Nicholson. But you know what? Andrew Nicholson is, my
The
thing, and
Blazers
I'm going to talk
legend.
about him. He's a Blazer legend. I'm going to talk about him. So anyway, that's my take. Rose, what's your take?
Well, I had a different take, but now I don't know why I thought of this, but I actually now I've changed my take.
Okay.
My take is that we need to bring back ticket stubs, real physical tickets, because here's the thing. I a couple of like maybe like several weeks ago or a month ago, I found a bunch of old ticket stubs in an envelope in a cupboard that I hadn't opened for a long time. And I was like, oh man. And I spent time looking through them and seeing all these things that I've done. And like on my mantle are the ticket stubs that my husband and I had from our very first date. Like we put them in a frame together and wasn't because we like planned to, but we both found that we still had them like years and years later after we were married. And we were like, oh, we should keep these. But ticket stubs are great mementos to go back and look at. And like now in the era of digital tickets, people are not going to have those. I really, really, really miss having a ticket stub to like press into a journal or like use as a bookmark and fall out of a book someday off my bookshelf and find it and be like, oh, that was a great time, wasn't it? Anyway, bring back real tickets. I know that we're trying to move away from printing stuff on paper because it's good for the environment, but like if there was a way for us to make environmentally conscious tickets, that's what I would advocate for because it is nice to have that reminder, that memory of a ticket stub if you want to keep it as something that was special to you. And I'll say I have a little box of old Blazer ticket stubs, and sometimes I write on the back like what happened that I want to remember from that time, and it's the best. Like one time I went to go see the Heat play and I came home that night and found out I was pregnant with my daughter. And so, yes, I hate the Heat, but I loved that game and I love finding that ticket stub places because it reminds me of a time where I was really happy. So, that's my take. Bring back ticket stubs, bring back those opportunities to relive or remember memories that you'd forgotten about. Because part of the reason to go in person, I think, to like events is so you have like a whole experience to reflect back on again and be happy about.
I love that take. I love that take because I can't remember anymore at all what games I went to, which ones I didn't go to. And yeah, having a ticket stub would be really, really helpful. I love that. That's a wonderful take. Great job.
Yeah, thanks. You want to take us out of here?
Sure. Hey, so everyone, thank you so much for listening. I hope you learned a little bit about who to root for and who to keep track of as the season limps across the finish line and the playoffs start with sadly no Trailblazers in it. Thank you so much for listening. You can find the We Have a Take podcast on Twitter at We Have a Take, and you can find it wherever you get your podcasts. Type in the whole words, all of the words, and then it should show up. You can find me on Twitter at TCB Biggs. You can find Rose at Rose L Harding. And thanks again for listening, and go Blazers.